Tampa City Council is back in session. Roll call.
Carlson, Vieira, Maniscalco.
Here.
Pertet, Goode, Miranda, and Citro.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
Thank you. Now, I believe we are at agenda item number 12.
Good afternoon, Council, and Happy New Year to you. Osea Wynn, Administrator of Neighborhood and Community Affairs. Item 12 speaks of the Cal Ripken grant regarding the Badges to Baseball program. I provided a memo and wanted to know what additional questions may I answer for you.
Well, any comments or questions?
Yep.
Go ahead, Councilman Goods.
Thank you, Administrator Wynn, and Ms. Hills and Mr. Broder for getting this information back to us. I guess there were a lot of questions in reference to the program over at the Spring Hill area. I guess it all started because of the lighting apparently and some equipment. And for the public's knowledge, can you just tell them a little bit about the program, what it's designed to do, who's responsible for the program, so the public can understand, and we can kind of put it kind of to bed so they can understand the funds are being utilized in the right way, and that, yeah, there were some situations with the lights. We've got those, I think we got those fixed and so forth. If you just give us a little overview, a little bit of it.
Yes, sir, I'll be glad to. Let me start by saying the lighting, all the maintenance, the infrastructure part of the program, we're gonna separate that out from the actual, the Cal Ripken Foundation. When we talk about the maintenance, the infrastructure, all that piece of it, that falls within the Parks and Recreation oversight. So I don't want anyone to think that, oh, the Cal Ripken funding should be used for something that it's not.
Correct.
Okay, so the way that the program works is that the Cal Ripken Foundation provides an avenue for us to receive a funding level for equipment for sports. We don't receive any tangible funding. What we do is that we provide a list of what we need for a location.
Okay.
We give that to, almost like an Amazon, shopping on Amazon.
Okay.
We provide that to them, and then they send it to us.
All right, okay.
Okay, so in 2019, we did not receive any funding, or we did not utilize this program. In 2020, we didn't do anything because of COVID, because of the pandemic. In 2021, we were allocated a funding level up to $10,000.
Okay.
However, the equipment amount that we used for that year, we purchased for that year, was for $2,300. It was $2,300 because we were coming off of the pandemic, and the way that the program works is that we have to have so many kids in the program, and that program services the kids through the equipment. We didn't have that number of kids, so that's why we did not use all of the $10,000.
All right.
In 2021, we received a grant funding up to $5,000, and in that particular year, I'm sorry, I said 2021, that was 2022, up to $5,000, but we only utilized $3,200 of the $5,000, out of that $5,000. And we're currently on track to receive an additional funding grant amount for 2023 as well.
All right, so the grant is based on participation.
It's based on participation, yes, sir, it is.
That's key to
I don't know what else you want.
That's key to know. I mean, you explain it, that way people can say, well, they get this amount of money. No, the money is based on participation. And if you don't have 50 kids, well, you can't get $10,000 if you ain't got 50 kids. This, I understand that. So
Yes,
I think
sir.
that's the gist of making sure, and you explain to the public in reference to the maintenance of the facility. That's the Parks and Recreation Department, and this grant is really for other assets to be used, whether it's equipment and so forth. So.
And there's additional point I would like to make, because I heard that there were questions about, it was a police-only
Correct,
program. And what we did is we reached out to the Cal Ripken Foundation. We knew otherwise, but we wanted to hear from the people who are actually providing the grant funding. And it's for any any first responder, anyone who carries a badge. The purpose of the program is to provide a mentoring with individuals with badges in a positive way to these kids. So it's not just police, it could be first responders, it could be code enforcement. If you are sworn, carried a legitimate badge, then you're eligible to mentor these kids through the program.
Okay. I have no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions? No offense to you, Ms. Nguyen, but I was hoping to see Ms. Hills here. That way I could wish her a happy birthday. Happy
Well-
birthday, Sharisha.
Well, that's why you don't see her here.
All right.
But it's good to see you.
Yeah.
Ms. Nguyen.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, before we continue, Mr. Shelby, I know we, and the clerk, I know we on a timeline, have the Shasta Chairman received the documents to be sent over to the.
They're already
mayor's office?
signed and done.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, let's go to agenda item number 15. And I believe Mr. Bidet is going to be with us on CMT.
Afternoon, Council. Afternoon, Chair. Big B-Day, Director, Mobility Department, here to address item 15. Item 15 is a motion by Councilman Goods related to accommodating our city clerk's office and their staff during night meetings with a parking facility close to City Hall. A memo was submitted to the same. We did reach out to Ms. Knoll's office, and we have found a solution on Franklin Street adjacent to TMOP, the municipal office building. And the memo does show the decals and all, so I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Councilman Goods.
Well, big thank you for that concern, we leave sometimes late nights, and we have to make sure sometimes I wait Ms. Hertek sometimes, because sometimes she does other means of transportation, make sure she's safe, but sometimes our clerk and our aides, they have to walk way down the street, and I just think we get out late sometimes, and I just don't want to make sure they are safe in our travels. So I'm glad that we were able to accommodate them now to have a spot for them during nighttime. Thank you, sir.
Any other
Thank
council
you.
members have any questions? Agenda item number 16, Mr. Bidet.
Thank you, Chair and Council. Big B-Day, Director of Mobility Department. Item 16, also a motion by Councilman Goods, relates to the Fort Brooke Garage, the wait list associated with it, and the potential to accommodate staff that work downtown in city parking facilities. A memo to that effect has been submitted. Really, the highlights are currently the wait list is over 800 for Fort Brooke Garage. So it's in very high demand, but there are some, as the memo shows, challenges associated with it as well. Specifically, the location is a high demand location, of course. There are limited barriers, cost, or time to remain on the wait list for any city garage at this time. And finally, particularly in Fort Brooke Garage, some of the larger businesses do take up a lot of the spaces, which is okay. What we're suggesting is we will be bringing to council for review a significant change to Chapter 15, one of which will include better management of the waitlist process itself. So one of it will be that there'll be a cost associated for remaining on the waitlist on a periodic basis. The other will be that the waitlist will time out after a certain time so that folks don't just put their name on the waitlist and they're there for years. This does require code change, and that will be forthcoming. And then finally, as far as accommodating our team members, and of course, we have so many team members in the downtown area, city employees that use parking facilities, of course. So we are committed to accommodating them in city parking facilities. However, we cannot prioritize them. This is also included in the language as part of the ATU contract that was recently negotiated. I would like to highlight that as part of the recent contract negotiations, we did provide, or the city did provide some assistance for the cost of parking, which is over and above as compared to other employees that may be in other facilities where parking is free. At this time, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Councilman Goods.
Vic, thank you for the report. You know, I was surprised when I saw that number was greater than what was first indicated. I guess for me, it's making sure when employees tell me they're almost late to work because they can't find a parking space. I didn't see in the report, I should have asked yesterday, do we lease out spaces in our parking garages to other entities? Is that part of this problem as well?
We don't lease out spaces as much as whether you are a person or an organization, you can acquire passes for spaces within the garage. So they're not treated differently, but the issue is, limited spaces and demand.
Could possibly once a year, if you're going to talk about possibly change the code to us, that we look at the number of employees who are actually utilizing our garages or so forth. That way we make sure that we have adequate spaces, or that we look at that list and say we blocking off so many, or give them the time frame if they want parking or what have you, give them a way to make sure they can have a space closer to their workplace versus somebody might be parking the e-board, they're working still downtown here. I want you, if you could look at that as well as a possibility to say, well, again, how many spaces do we have in this garage? How many employees utilize the parking spaces here? And that we can put a number to say, well, we've got this cap this year, but we have provided spaces for our employees / team members.
Absolutely, yes, sir. I mean, demand management will be a part of our recommendation, and that will be the goal with policy.
Thank you, Clippy. Appreciate your report.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Mr. Bede. Let's go on to, Councilman Carlson.
No, I just want to ask Vic, when we talk about land use a lot, we talk about how people don't need parking anymore. And people who were predicting the future a few years ago thought that by now we would have autonomous vehicles that would be operating as something like Uber, and nobody would need to own cars and nobody would need to have parking garages. And they were talking about converting parking garages to apartments and condos. That, it seems to be 10 or 20 years off now. And you said we have a waiting list of 800 people. I know in the past, because my company was in the building across the street for almost 30 years, that parking garage is seen as an economic engine. I mean, that whole quadplex was built as an economic driver in downtown. And it seems to me that there must be a case there for more parking, and also adjusting the pricing. I know we adjusted the pricing a couple years ago, but isn't there a case for more parking then in some way? And would it make sense I'm not suggesting this, but would it make sense at some point to look at selling that parking garage to the owners of the building and then building a parking garage somewhere else? I know years ago, maybe it's 20 years ago now, that parking garage, the city took that parking garage from 6 floors to 10, so that increased the capacity dramatically, but it's still full all the time. Anyway, Downtown Partnership and others talk about how we don't have a parking problem, we have a walking problem. I don't agree with that, because we live in Florida and we have thunderstorms every day, and getting somebody to walk all the way to Sky Point or to Pan Arroyo Garage is not reasonable, I think, in the hot sun or rain. And so we should be able to provide parking for businesses downtown, and we need to try to figure out how to encourage businesses to come back to downtown and provide parking for them. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Vic, go ahead.
If I may,
one after you.
I think those are good points, Councilman. Couple of things. Downtown Partnership, as you're aware, conducted a very comprehensive study of parking inventory in the downtown. So along with the walking problem, which is certainly, debatable. How many blocks is it reasonable to walk? No doubt about that. But we also, that study found, have adequate spaces for today's and the near future's needs as we transition to multimodal. The challenge is that public parking spaces are only 1/3 of downtown's inventory. Private are 2/3 of the inventory. So when we look at the overall capacity of parking available from a demand management standpoint, rather than investing in assets for parking, there are opportunities to partner better with the private sector, and to that end, we continue to have conversations with developers and the downtown partnership. The first part of demand management, of course, was what we did a couple of years back, which was adjust rates and get them a little bit closer to market to where we can operate the enterprise adequately. And we're doing very well, especially as compared to 3 years ago. And then the other aspect of it is to fix the on-street versus off-street inequity that existed. That has also helped. So those efforts are underway. We've already seen a couple of rate adjustments and a third one to come up in a year. And then we'll look at every other demand management aspect as well. As far as conversion of garages to adaptive reuse for apartments or something else, it's a little bit harder for parking garages because their live load requirements are actually lesser than those of a residential or an office building. And so those conversions aren't easy unless a facility is built similar to Midtown to be something more than a garage and transition to it over time. So just wanted to add that, and we're looking at all options.
Councilwoman Hurtak, did you have anything?
Yes. I thank you for that, and I echo what you say, because when I get off the interstate at Tampa Street, there's that city parking lot right there, and it's never full. So there certainly is parking, but one of the things that we're going to have to discuss, and I know one of the ideas was possibly like a downtown looper, and I would love to see us talk about that, but that's now going to have to be a city thing because we don't have the All for Transportation money. But since that would be solely focused in downtown, maybe that's something that we need to bring up again. Yeah.
I think it's a great point. A circulator similar to the streetcar or the streetcar extension, which is something we've worked on. And right from the get-go, aggregating existing parking inventories around the streetcar extension has been our vision. That's how we'll be able to foster existing space for more modes. So that's a great point. Thank you.
Yes, and so because I would love to see parking. I mean, new parking structures should be further on the edges of downtown and bringing people in using the transit. Even if we have to do it ourselves or through the CRA, because it sounds like we're going to have to. So.
Anyone else? I couldn't agree with you more, Councilwoman Hurtak, that we don't have a parking problem. We may have a covered parking problem, and we may not have a parking space close to where somebody wants to do business. And a circulator would solve all those issues, in my opinion. Somebody could park 4 or 5 blocks away from where they actually need to go to, and then they could take the circulator to get there to and from. Any other questions for Mr. Bede? Mr. Bede, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we are now on to our consent. Oh,
17.
my bad, 17. Vic, did you leave? I'm sorry I let you go too soon. Mr. Bede. I'm
Yes,
sorry
sir.
I let you go too soon. 17.
So item 17 is a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco relative to Trader Joe's and the traffic around that. A memo to that effect has been submitted. A summary of the same is that Trader Joe's, when it was approved in 2014, it used to be a fitness center. And it wasn't rezoned because the use did not change. It was commercial general. And so the same number of parking spaces were grandfathered in, if you will. Of course, Trader Joe's is much more popular in terms of use and did create traffic challenges, as we see. We worked with FDOT at Swan and Dale Mabry to add left turn signals in the area. And we continue to work with Trader Joe's management to see if they will consider either off-site parking options or foster more multimodal parking as well, to where folks that are at least within the neighborhood can access it with something other than a car, if at all that is their wish. Beyond that, we're looking at some traffic engineering type solutions, but they will be limited given the limited right-of-way. And so, for example, we're looking at a left turn restriction on Swan into the Trader Joe's, but that might induce more traffic into the neighborhood. So, one intention might lead to something else. But we continue to work on these type of challenges, but I'd like to emphasize that's one of the reasons we foster multimodal solutions.
Councilman Maniscalco.
No, that's sufficient, and I appreciate you looking into this and looking at possible solutions, because again, we've been receiving lots of emails and complaints, and it's not recent. It's been going on for a long time. You did explain, it wasn't a rezoning. It didn't need it because of the previous use. But again, Trader Joe's is very, very busy. Anytime that I've gone there, I go first thing in the morning. If not, it's a nightmare. It really is. And I can't imagine what it's like for people that live there. And of course, they're complaining. My biggest concern is, what about emergency vehicles trying to get through? Sometimes it's so backed up to Dale Mabry, you got to get an ambulance through, a police car, fire truck, whatever it is. But I appreciate you looking into this and looking for solutions and working with them to see what we can do. It's a very, very poorly positioned place. For example, down the street you have Sprouts, but Sprouts has Dale Mabry access, has side street access, and I think there's an exit in the back. And that is equally as busy. I mean, it's a grocery store of a similar size. Fresh Market is not too far away, but they have various access points. So this is just one of the, I've never been to another Trader Joe's, only the Tampa one. I don't know how others are, if they're squeezed into places where they really shouldn't be. And of course, it's no help that the front-facing part of Dale Mabry that's adjacent to Trader Joe's is a separate business with no access point. So it's not like they can ask FDOT for another access point. So again, thank you very much for looking into possible solutions. I know people are watching. I know there was a recent news story about it. And we go from there. Let's see if we can find some relief, because homeowners are very, very frustrated. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilman Miranda.
I just want to echo what Mr. Councilmember Guido Maniscalco said. They knew when they took over the place that they had that parking spot. And I would imagine they knew what they do in other Trader Joe's as far as customers coming in and out. And when you go by there, you can't make a right-hand turn if you're heading south, and you can't make a left-hand turn if you're heading north. You can't get in at certain hours of the day. And it backs up all the way to, Clark, the other street, runs up and down, and one of those areas. And I think the burden is on them, not on us. They're the ones that knew, they're the ones that created it, because they had the zoning already for it. So if somebody gets hurt there, and more than likely there will be an accident, I hope not, but they ought to look at themselves for the liability that they're creating on their own business. I've been in that store twice. It's a beautiful store. The products are very good. Everything is fine, but you don't have the parking ratio that you need for the attendance of people that come in. So their own success is causing harm. And it's up to them. This council had anything to do at all with the rezoning of Trader Joe's. It was already there in place. They took it and they knew what they had, and they knew how much traffic those stores handles. If not, they wouldn't open one. So they're a wonderful store. They have a lot of business, but they're creating a problem for themselves, for our citizens. There's where we come in. And sooner or later, I hope nothing happened, but they're the ones that are going to be on the hook. This council and this city did not approve that. It was done on their own tuition of what they thought was necessary for them to be in business. That's it, thank you.
Can I have a representative from legal? Maybe answer a question that I may have? I'm looking for, if this is a problem that's caused by the business, and it's interfering with our traffic pattern, is there anything that we can do to have them place a TPD officer out there to direct traffic so that there is not a backup for in case we need an emergency or people that need to get through, or keep the backup from going all the way to Clark or up Dale Mabry?
So, Councilman, while we wait for, Chair, while we
Yes.
wait for legal, in our conversations with Trader Joe's, they do have staff position during certain times, but not all the time, to manage traffic and to direct traffic. I think the real challenge is just sheer demand versus the supply of available parking.
And thank you, Vic, for that. But in the times that I have driven by there, when it is backed up, it's always somebody trying to make a turn into their parking lot. Whether it is blocking the traffic that's eastbound, blocking the traffic that's going westbound, or even coming southbound on Dale Mabry. If, in my opinion, if there was an officer saying there, no, the lot's full, keep on, go around the block and come back and try and get in, that would stop the blockage. But that is just a question I'm asking for you and for legal, if we can go to the store and say, this may help alleviate our traffic problem.
Good afternoon, Council. Susan Johnson-Velez, Legal Department. That is not a question that we had looked at for purposes of this report today, but we certainly can look into that and come back to Council with a follow-up report.
Would you mind?
Not at all, sir.
Say 2 weeks? Say 2 weeks? Just, or even something written?
If we have to do something written, I would ask for 30 days just to give
30
us.
days, please and thank you.
Thank
We
you.
have a motion from Chairman Citro, a second from Councilmember Miranda. The closest 30 days is gonna be February 2nd. Not exactly 30 days, but give or take. If not, we have February 16th.
And it,
Give the 16th so they have ample
Yeah.
time.
We have a motion from Chairman Citro for this to come back even as a written report for February 16th, second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All
thank
right.
you. And if I could, Ms. Johnson-Velez, I don't want to make it seem like we're forcing or bullying or anything to that nature, but if we can give them a gentle persuasion, or if we have any type of authority to ask them to do it.
Yes, sir, we'll look into all of those.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Bede, I thank you. Any further on 17?
Nope.
Thank you, Mr. Bede.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll go on to our consent agenda items. Councilman Vieira, you have public safety.
Yes, sir. I move items 18 through 21.
Second?
We have a motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilman Goods, you have Parks and Recreation.
Items 20 through 25,
Second.
Mr. Chairman.
Second?
We have a motion made by Councilman Goods, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilwoman Hurtak, you have Public Works.
Yes, I move items 26 through 41.
Second.
Second?
We have a motion made by Councilwoman Hurtak, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilman Miranda, you have Finance.
Move items 42 to 46.
We have a motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilman Carlson, you have Building and Zoning.
I'd like to move 47 through 65 minus 62 and 56.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilman Maniscalco, you have Transportation.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move items 66 through 72.
Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to set the public hearings for items 73 to
Second.
76.
And we have time certains on those?
Yes, they are listed in the agenda.
9:30.
Yeah, 9:30 or 10:30 as shown in each item. Yes, or 1:32, but it's all clearly in the agenda.
All right, we have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, I believe seconded by Councilman Goods.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Move to open all public hearings beginning
Second.
with 77 all the way through until, this includes the 10:30 hearings as well, all the way through 96.
Then in that case, since we're doing that, I know that the first set is non-quasi judicial, but if we can just get anybody that is in council chambers to please stand to be sworn in if you're going to be giving any type of testimony or any type of comment on any of the future cases that we have.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Thank you very much. We're going to go with agenda item number 77, file number E 2022-8, chapter 2.
Good afternoon, Council. Susan Johnson Velez, Legal Department. Item number 77 is a second reading on your Community Benefits Agreement ordinance. You previously had items 53 and 54 that were just approved on your consent agenda, which were the two related resolutions that I mentioned at the first reading hearing, that the first one established the Community Benefit Advisory Council, and the second approved the form for the Community Benefit Information Sheet that will be a part of this process. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any comments or any questions? Seeing none, is there anyone in the public that would like to give comments to agenda item number 77?
Move to close.
Second.
We have a motion to close from Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goose. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Councilman Miranda, would you mind reading agenda item 77?
Not at all, Mr. Chairman. File number E 2022/8. Ordinance B presented for second reading and adoption. An ordinance in the city of Tampa, Florida relating to the Community Benefit Program, making revision to Tampa Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administration, and creating Article X1, Section 2-850 through Sections 2-856, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Goods. Roll call vote.
Goods,
Yes.
Viera, Maniscalco.
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
and Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Viera being absent at vote.
Thank you very much.
Mr.
Agenda
Chairman?
item, Councilman Goods.
Let me just again give another shout out to Mr. Drumgo. He took over this project and got it in record time because of the delay on it. So just want to thank him again for getting this done. It's going to be very beneficial to the development stages in some of our communities. So thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 78, file number TA CPA 22-24.
Good afternoon, Emily Phelan, Planning Commission staff. This is TA CPA 2224. It's a map amendment located at 6112 Southwest Shore Boulevard and 4733 West Bay Avenue. The request is to change the future land use from R10 to CMU 35. And this amendment was approved at the December 8th, 2022 hearing and is in front of you today for second reading. This concludes my presentation. If you have any questions.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none, is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak to agenda item number 78?
Second.
Motion to close by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Councilman Goods.
File number TA/CPA 22-24. Ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption. An ordinance amending the Imagine 2040 Tampa Comprehensive Plan, future land use element, future land use map for the property located at 6112 South West Shore Boulevard and 4733 West Bay Avenue from residential 10 R10 to community mixed use 35 CMNU 35, providing for repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing celebrity, providing effective date.
We have a motion made by Councilman Goods, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Roll call vote.
Viera, Maniscalco,
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
and Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Viera being absent at vote.
Thank you. Now we are entering into our quasi judicial.
No, 79.
79.
Do I just keep missing over stuff? My apologies.
Well, I'll get back into this.
Oh, no. Yes, you are correct. Agenda item number 79, file number E 2022-9, 8, Chapter 2.
Good morning, Andrea Zellman, City Attorney. This is second reading, excuse me, of the ordinance amending the code with regard to bringing settlements over $100,000 to City Council for approval. You've already approved this on first reading. This is just second reading and adoption today, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Councilwoman Hurtak.
I just want to say thank you again for getting this done so quickly and exactly what we were asking for. Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to this agenda item? A motion to close by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goode. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman Hurtak.
Yes, an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption, an ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida, amending Section 2-233 of the City of Tampa Code to revise the authority of the city attorney and/or their designee and the risk manager and/or their designee to dispose of claims and lawsuits against the city, providing for severability, repealing all ordinances or other documents in conflict herewith,
Second.
providing an effective date.
We have a motion made by Councilwoman Hurtak, seconded by Councilman Miranda, excuse me. All in favor?
Aye.
Excuse me, roll call vote.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Hurtak?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Goode?
Yes.
Vieira? And Citro.
Yes,
Motion carried unanimously with Vieira being absent at vote.
thank you very
Mr.
much.
Chair, could I just make one statement?
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Councilmember Hurtak said, that I want to thank City Attorney Zellman and all of her colleagues for doing this exactly the way we requested it and collaborating on it. This is an important issue that we saw without much fanfare. And Ms. Zellman may disagree with me, but I'll just tell you based on the outside attorneys I've gotten, this is something that we discovered by accident that was a misinterpretation by a prior city attorney. And it could have potentially created a lot of liability for the city. It could still, but we have now patched a loophole that was put in by a 2-paragraph misinterpretation. And I don't think that 2-paragraph misinterpretation was brought before City Council at the time. And so for all the discussion about City Council taking away the powers of the mayor, there are so many instances where powers of City Council by charter have been taken away by city attorneys or prior mayors and others. And this is restoring what the charter says and delegating that authority. But it's a shame that somehow that went on for 4 years. And it's not Ms. Zellman's fault. She's fixing it. But we need to make sure that we ask questions. It's not about taking away powers from a mayor. It's about making sure we keep the powers of City Council. This was a huge mistake that never should have happened. Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 85, file number RZ 22-33. And for the record, for the next 4 agenda items, I was absent at the time of the first voting. I have reviewed the tapes, and I am confident that I can make a decision without bias.
Thank you. These quasi-judicial matters, Mr. Chairman, if I can, 2 things. Number one is if there's anybody who is not prepared or if you were absent and have not made yourself prepared to vote, please do state that. The other thing, Mr. Chairman, just because these are quasi-judicial matters, I'd like that council be able to receive and file all the ex parte communications, the written ex parte commissions, if any, that have been received since first reading.
We have a motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And if there's any verbal ex parte communications that need to be disclosed, please do so at the start of that hearing, if there are any. Thank you.
Mr. Hussein.
Zain Hussein, Development Coordination. Agenda item number 85, case REZ 22-33. This is being presented for second reading and adoption at the location 3812 Pinewood Street. Proposed rezoning from IG Industrial General to PD Planned Development Hotel. Site plans have been turned into the city clerk's office. I'm here for any questions.
Any questions? Is there anyone in the audience in chambers that wishes to make a comment to agenda item number 85? We have the applicants that are online. Would you like to say anything further? Mr. Truitt.
Truitt Gardner, 400 North Ashley Drive. First of all, Happy New Year to you. And
Ms. Gardner, I need all of you to please raise your hands so you can be sworn in. Thank you. And is there anyone else in the audience that hasn't been sworn in? Yes, ma'am, I saw you walk in, and this gentleman just walked in. Sir, you were here earlier. Please stand up so you can all be sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. I did.
You guys didn't have to stand up. You guys were fine in your office.
I wanted to make it official.
Okay, please proceed.
Sure. Again, Truitt Gardner, 400 North Ashley Drive. Happy New Year to each of you. And happy to answer any questions on this. We were unanimously approved on December 1st. And as Zane mentioned, we have resubmitted the site plan with all changes made.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Again, is there anyone present that wishes to speak to agenda item number 85? Seeing none, is there anyone else online? Mr. Wilson, are you there?
I am here. I was simply here to observe and answer any questions.
See. Are you with the applicant or are you?
With the applicant.
Okay. I cannot see you. Is your camera on?
I believe it is now.
We still cannot see you. There you are.
Hey,
are you going to be giving testimony?
No, sir, I am not. I'm simply here. We're the architects. I was simply here if needed to answer questions.
Thank you. Is there any questions? Because if there is, he has to be sworn in.
Move to close.
Thank you very much. Again, is there anybody in chambers who wishes to speak to agenda number 85? Seeing none, we have a motion to close by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilman Maniscalco.
Thank you very much. I have an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption, REZ 22-33, an ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 3812 Pinewood Street in the city of Tampa, Florida, more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification IG Industrial General to PD Plan Development Hotel, providing an effective date.
Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excuse me. Roll call.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Hurtak?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Vieira?
Yes.
And Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Agenda item number 86, file number REZ 22-80.
Zane Hussein, Development Coordination. This is being presented for second reading and adoption at the location 2213 North 65th Street. Proposed rezoning from RS50 Residential Single Family to IG Industrial General. This being Euclidean, no site plan was required. I'm here for any questions if needed.
Questions? Petitioner,
No, nothing.
you're good?
No, yeah.
No rebuttal, no nothing?
No.
You're okay.
No.
Save that for now. Anybody in chambers that wishes to speak to agenda number 86? Do you have anybody online?
Move to close.
Motion closed by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Councilman Vieira.
Yes, sir.
Move an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption ordinance rezoning property in general vicinity of 2213 North 65th Street in the city of Tampa, Florida, more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification RS50 residential single family to IG industrial general, providing an effective date.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. Roll call vote.
Miranda?
Yes.
Hurtak?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Vieira?
Yes.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
And Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Agenda item number 87, file number REZ
Thank you.
22-
Thank you.
Thank you. File number REZ 22-96.
Zane Hussein, Development Coordination. This being presented for second reading and adoption at the location 18202 East Meadows Road. This is a proposed rezoning from PD Plan Development to PD Plan Development Vehicle Repair minor, and car wash. Site plans were turned in to the city clerk's office. I'm here for any questions needed.
Any questions? Any comments? Mr. Brickmeyer, you haven't been sworn in yet, have you? We'll need to swear you in.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Brickmeyer, go ahead.
Yes, Clayton Rickelmeyer, Hillward Henderson for the applicant. I'm just here to answer any questions. We submitted the package as Zane said, and appreciate his work on this.
Do we have any questions for the petitioner? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to agenda item number 87? Motion to close by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilman Carlson.
I'd like to move file number REZ 22-96, ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption, ordinance rezoning property in general vicinity of 18202 East Meadows Road in the city of Tampa, Florida, more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification PD plan development to PD plan development vehicle repair minor car wash, providing effective date.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Miranda. Roll call vote.
Pertec?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Vieira?
Yes.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
And Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jen, you're welcome. Agenda number 88, file number REZ 22-117.
Zane Hussein, Development Coordination. This is being presented for second reading and adoption at the location 825 West Linebaugh Avenue and folio number 95031.0010. Proposed rezoning from PD Plan Development to PD Plan Development Medical Office and Residential Multifamily. Site plans were turned in the city clerk's office. I'm here for any questions.
Any questions? Petitioners.
Yes, Drew Gardner, 400 North Ashley Drive, similar to item 85. This was also heard on December 1st, unanimously approved, and all site plan revisions have been made. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to agenda item number 88? Seeing none, do we have anybody online? Thank you.
Second.
Moved to close by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Councilman Miranda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 88, file number REZ 22/117. Ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption. An ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 825 West Linebaugh Avenue, folio number 95031.0010 in the city of Tampa, Florida, more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification, PD plan development to PD plan development medical office and residential multifamily, providing an effective date.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Roll call vote.
Carlson?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Vieira?
Yes.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Pertec?
Yes.
And Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Agenda item number 89, file number REZ 22-99.
Zane Hussein, Development Coordination. This is being presented for second reading and adoption at the location 4621 East Lake Avenue. Proposed rezoning from RM16 Residential Multifamily to RM24 Residential Multifamily. This being Euclidean, note site plan was required. I'm here for any questions.
Is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, petitioner. Do we have a petitioner? Agenda item number 89, file number REZ 22-99. One last time. Okay.
Public comment.
Is there anyone here wishing to make public comments to agenda item number 89?
Move to close.
Motion to close by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilman Goods, you voted no against this. Councilwoman Hurtak.
Move file number REZ 22-99, ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption, an ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 4621 East Lake Avenue in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in Section 1, from zoning district classification RM16, residential multifamily, to RM24, residential multifamily, providing an effective date.
Second.
A motion made by Councilwoman Hurtak, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All, roll call vote.
Goose,
Yes. I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry, no.
Vieira,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Miranda, Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
and Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried with Goose voting no.
Thank you. Agenda item number 90, file number REZ 22-101.
Zain Hussein Development Coordination. This is being presented for second reading and adoption at the location 4523 West Chestnut Street. Proposed rezoning from PD Plan Development to PD Plan Development Residential Multifamily. Site plans have been turned into the city clerk's office. I'm here for any questions.
Any questions? Thank you. Petitioner. Do we have a petitioner here for agenda item number 90? Anyone online? Is there anyone wishing to make public comment to agenda item number 90, file number REZ 22-101?
Move to close.
Motion to close by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Councilman Goods.
Excuse me, file number REZ-22-101, order presented for second reading and adoption. An ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 4523 West Chestnut Street in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in Section 1 from zoning district classification PD Plan Development to PD Plan Development Residential Multifamily, providing an effective date.
Motion made by Councilman Goods, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. Roll call vote.
Vieira,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
and Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Agenda item number 91, file number REZ 22-115.
Zain Hussein Development Coordination. This is being presented for second reading and adoption at the locations 6112 South West Shore Boulevard and 4733 West Bay Avenue. Proposed rezoning from RS60 Residential Single Family and CN Commercial Neighborhood to PD Plan Development Restaurant, Drive-In, and Retail Sales Shoppers Goods. Site plans were turned into the city clerk's office. I'm here for any questions.
Seeing none, petitioner?
Alex Shaler, 400 North Ashley Drive, for the record. This was approved on December 8th, and we made all the site plan revisions, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Any questions? Is there anyone in chambers who wishes to speak to agenda item number 91? Anyone online?
Move to close.
Second.
Motion closed by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilman Maniscalco.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption, an ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 6112 Southwest Shore Boulevard and 4733 West Bay Avenue in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in Section 1 from zoning district classification RS60 Residential Single Family and CN Commercial Neighborhood, a PD Plan Development Restaurant, Drive-In, and Retail Sales Shoppers Good, providing an effective date.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. Roll call vote.
Miranda,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
and Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Agenda item number 29, file number E 2022-8, chapter 27, HPC 2021-04.
Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the legal department. Mr. Chair, did you mean item number 92?
Did I mean that? Yes, I more than likely did. Okay. Let me rephrase this then. Next up is agenda item number 92, file number E 2022-8, chapter 27, HPC 2021-04. Thank you for the correction. Dyslexia taking over again.
Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the legal department. Item number 2 is regarding HPC 2021-04, which is a substitute ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption for City Council to consider regarding the expansion of the boundaries of the Hyde Park Historic District as a local historic district. On December 8th, 2022, City Council modified the Historic Preservation Commission's recommendation and approved on first reading consideration the applicant's amended application to reduce the proposed boundaries of the Hyde Park Historic Districts, to remove the area north of Platt Street and south of the Crosstown Expressway. I prepared a memorandum and the attachments, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Just from my knowledge, this was, again, the substitute ordinances to the agreed upon barriers that were discussed at the time of the first hearing.
Correct. The attachments are based upon City Council's motion. The legal descriptions change, and the changed legal description is attached, which makes this a substitute ordinance.
Thank you very much. Petitioner. Everybody's doing musical chairs now, so.
I'm Pamela Jo Hatley. I represent the petitioners, in this case, the Historic Hyde Park Neighborhood Association and the Hyde Park Spanish Town Creek Civic Association. They did request an expansion of the Hyde Park Historic District, and the record shows, of course, that the expanded district boundaries do meet or exceed the city's criteria for designation as a historic district. I'm here, my clients are here for any questions you might have of us. Otherwise, we urge council to adopt the expanded boundaries on second reading.
Comments or questions? I already had my question answered. Is there anyone in chambers that wishes to speak to agenda item number 92?
Greetings, Council. My name is Tobin Green, and I'm a resident of the Hyde Park Spanish Town Creek and an active committee member on the Spanish Town Creek Civic Association. I'm also an alumni of the USF School of Architecture and Community Design with a master's degree in architecture and the owner of an award-winning design build studio here in South Tampa called AdMix. I mention these things because I'm someone who's planted my flag here in Hyde Park, in the part of Hyde Park being affected by this expansion. I've loved this neighborhood since I was in grade school, and it was always a dream of mine to design and build a home here. So when I achieved that lifelong goal to make the dream a reality, I planted my flag with the intention of doing good in this part of the community. A community that had previously been discarded by the city, and a community that at that time was not restricted by the historic guidelines set forth by the ARC. This enabled me to explore my own style of urban progressive architecture and design in ways that would have otherwise been shunned by the current standards of the ARC. I want to step back and be clear that saying that I believe both historic preservation and ARC have great intentions. They're both here to protect us, protect our old structures, and protect us from developers with no regard for thoughtful design, but instead for their profit lines. Build cheap, build fast, sell high. We can all agree that that's not the standard we want in our neighborhoods. But what we should be starting to talk about and think about is how do we want to build for the future? Why should buildings be deemed as historically relevant and worthy of fighting for just because they're built in a certain time frame? That's it's short-sighted, and the current guidelines need to be updated. Now, you, Mr. Citro, said something at the end of the last council meeting that stuck out to me and meant a lot to me. I'm paraphrasing, but it was something to the effect of, if all we remain concerned with is historic preservation and building new structures based on old historic design standards, then how's the next generation supposed to build meaningful things and create a history of their own? I stand behind that, and I really appreciate that comment. So it takes me back to my own home style. The year that I built the house, we won 5 of the 9 major awards from the Tampa Bay Parade of Homes put on by the Tampa Bay Builders Association. We won for Best in Class of Architectural Design, Best in Class for Curb Appeal, Best in Class for Price Category, and even the Grand Diamond for Best Project of the Year that year. So based on all that info, I'd have to ask how we can, as a community, sit here and continue to stand behind the current guidelines of the ARC that would absolutely disallow this type of design. It doesn't make sense. The ideologies of the ARC are strong, and I believe that they offer us a perfect foundation on which to build upon. But we need to readdress the design standards, embrace a new and thoughtful, meaningful design process. Let's put our arms around the historic preservation. Let's put our arms around the ARC. But let's ask that these two groups return the same amount of respect for progress as they do for history. Let's build the future with old world grit and new generational fortitude. The same as we've learned to embrace historical preservation, I say that we open up our minds and start a new discussion about historic procreation. Historic procreation. So on that note, I don't really have enough time to say the rest of the things that I want to say, but again, my name's Tobin Green. You guys are going to be hearing more from me. I'm really working with the School of Architecture at USF and the city to develop a program at the school that's going to study this and see what we can make that look like, or maybe a new design overlay district. Thank you.
Mr. Green, I'm sorry, is there any comments or questions? Mr. Green, I thank you very much, and I still stand behind what I say. And you paraphrased it almost correctly, but it was, if we keep preserving and preserving and preserving, how is the next generation going to create history? I still stand behind that. I have lived within South Tampa, Hyde Park District, for many, many, many years. There are buildings there that need to be preserved.
Absolutely.
On the fringes is where I'm hoping you come in, and your designs and your thoughts come in.
I'm trying. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Carl.
Sorry to talk after you, Mr. Chair, but I just want to say I appreciate what you're doing. For disclosure, I don't need to disclose this as ex parte, but 2 or 3 years ago, I went to a neighborhood association at his house. His house is beautiful, state of the art, well designed. He loves Star Wars and has that all over his house. Remember that, but I won't be biased in my vote because of that. But I'm happy to sit down with you and talk to you about architectural styles. You know, just a block or two away, there's a whole bunch of stuff that was built in the 90s where they tore down historic homes, and that isn't the kind of quality that you have.
Right.
And so, and I know there's a lot of very well-educated people behind you and that are interested in this. And so if there's a way to figure out how to put new architecture in places where the old buildings don't exist, I'm happy to sit at the table and have that discussion. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Anyone else in chambers that wishes to speak to agenda item number 92? Do we have anyone online? Ms. Hatley, do you want any rebuttal? Motion to close by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor? Aye. Councilman Vieira. You were absent at this time. Did you review? Are you feel confident making this motion?
Modestly, no, I'm joking.
Okay,
Absolutely.
The substitute, please.
Yes, sir. I move a substitute ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption ordinance of the city of Tampa, Florida, designated the expansion of the boundaries of the Hyde Park Historic District as a local historic district, repealing all ordinances in conflict therewith, providing for severability, providing for an effective date.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Roll call vote.
Protet?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Vieira?
Yes.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
And Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Agenda item number 93. File number VAC 22-28.
Los Angeles Development Coordination, presenting file number VAC 22-28. First reading consideration. The applicant's name is Christopher J. Schaefer II. Property address is 809 West Peninsula Street. This proposed vacating request is to vacate the alley lying north of Peninsula Street, south of Woodlawn Avenue, east of Poplar Avenue, and west of Myrtle Avenue. This application was filed September 14th, 2022. Applicant owns property on the south side of the alley that is requested to be vacated. The applicant's reason for the application is the alley is overgrown, it's unused, there's a lot of illegal dumping, and it's abandoned. This alley was created by subdivision plat. The existing alley is approximately 6,000 square feet. The applicant's property here, 809 West Peninsula Street, and the proposed vacating request, the alley in yellow. Plat of Buffalo Heights that dedicated the alley, Block 10. Applicant's property off of Peninsula Street. This is the image looking west from North Myrtle Avenue. The alley here. It's the alley looking east from North Poplar Avenue. Staff have no objections to this vacating request. Easement reservations are needed overall for wastewater and Frontier. The natural resources must comply with Chapter 27 in regard to tree preservation and design for any improvements placed adjacent to trees in a vacated area. That's all I have above. If I have any questions.
Comments or questions? Seeing none, petitioner. Is the petitioner here? Agenda 93.
You're not gonna come up, say anything?
If he should just announce that he's here and please put his name on the record.
Christopher J. Schaefer, at 809 West Peninsula. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of you guys. I just want to vacate the alley because, as you can see with one of the signs that I posted, there's already dumping stuff there. I've walked through, picked some stuff up, seen kids young kids smoking cigarettes back there and stuff. So I just think everybody should adopt it. And if you walk back there, someone already adopted half of it. Actually, I think they adopted more than half. So that's about it. If you guys have any questions for me.
Any questions? Seeing none, is there anyone in chambers that would like to speak to agenda item number 93? Seeing none, do we have anyone online?
Second.
Motion closed by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor? Councilman Carlson.
I'd like to pass, please.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 93, file number VAC 22-28. Ordinance being presented for first reading consideration. Ordinance in the city of Tampa, Florida, vacating, closing, discontinuing, and abandoning that alleyway located north of Peninsula Street, south of Woodlawn Avenue, east of Popular Avenue, west of Myrtle Avenue, within the plat of Buffalo Heights subdivision in the city of Tampa, Florida, Hillsborough County, Florida, as more particularly described, fully described in sections 2 thereof, as more particularly set forth within, providing for enforcement of penalties for violation, providing for definitions, interpretation, and repeating conflicts, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Goods. Roll call vote.
Hurtak,
No.
Carlson,
No.
Goods,
Yes.
Vieira, Maniscalco,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
and Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried with Hurtak and Carlson voting no and Vieira being absent at vote. Second reading and adoption will be held on February 2nd, 2023 at 9:30 a.m.
Agenda item number 94 is request to be withdrawn.
Move to remove from the agenda.
Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Agenda item number 95, file number VAC 22-30.
Ross Amos, Development Coordination, presenting file number VAC 22-30. This is a vacating request being presented for first reading. The applicant's name is Kayla Gonzalez. Property address is 4201 North 17th Street. Proposed vacating request is to vacate the alley lying north of North Bay Street, south of Genesee Street, east of 17th Street, and west of 19th Street in Block 10 of Bonita. This application was filed September 18th, 2022. The applicant owns the property on the south side of the alley. His request to be vacated. The alley was created by subdivision plat. The existing alley is approximately 3,500 square feet. Applicant's property in red, and the proposed vacating request, the alley in yellow. Plat dedicating the alley, Block 10. It's the applicant's property. This is the approximate location of the alley looking east from North 17th Street.
Mr. Hammonds, would you say it starts just left of that telephone pole and to the right of the tree?
Approximately.
Right where your finger is at?
Right.
Right there?
Yeah, it's approximately right on the boundary of this, from what information I've gathered of where this telephone pole is.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. And it's 13 feet wide, this alley is.
Or was?
And this is the southern boundary, or was, yes.
And did you have a picture of the northern boundary? Did you already show that?
This is looking at it from the east.
From the north?
Yeah, from the east.
Okay.
So you're looking easterly at the alley.
I understand, thank you.
Uh-huh. So it's approximately here, and 13 feet probably is approximately around in here. This is the alley, general location of the alley looking west from 19th Street.
And now if you could just approximate where the alley would have been?
Again, it's 13 feet wide. It's
Understood.
right in here. Yeah.
I guess you're seeing my point, where was
Correct.
the alley? Thank you.
Correct. The staff have no objections to this vacating request. No easement reservations required. Natural Resource must comply with Chapter 27 in regard to tree preservation. That's all I have. If you have any questions.
Councilman Carlson.
In situations like this, are there not code enforcement fines or violations filed?
In most cases, the vacating requests that I've presented in the past, there are some, and then there's not. In this case, there was a code enforcement case. And from what I gathered, the complaint came from the north side of the applicant's property, and then later on, once they became aware that after they complained, because they needed to get behind their building that was in the picture shown, here, they needed to cut some weeds here, and weren't able to because both property owners had actually fenced into the alley without knowing, pretty much. So you'll not find any objections, I don't think, from the public because of that reason. They realized what they did after the complaint was made, and the code enforcement came and cited them, so this is to rectify that. I know that's a roundabout way of putting it.
Don't fight, join forces.
Correct. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Thank you. Petitioner.
Good afternoon, your honors, your council. I'm Kayla Gonzalez. As you see, it's already closed out because when we purchased the home in November 2021, it was already closed out for, I believe, for many years. And we didn't know this was a problem or a situation until we faced with the notice that we are in the line. And that being said, we proceed to making it right. And that's why we're here today, just to, keep it the way it is, because like you see in the pictures in both sides, everybody already had it, taken care of, because as our neighbor that is part owner of, on the other side of that alley, she testified, Ms. Youngblood, that's already was closed. So thank you for your time. I don't know if you have any question for me.
Any comments or any questions?
Thank you for your time.
Councilman Miranda.
So this, cuando usted compró, when you bought this, it was already there. November, what year did you buy it?
November 3rd, 2021, and we had, it was like another fence, and we when we fenced in, we left that fence in there, and we fenced in the inside of that line.
Got it, thank you very much.
Hello, how you doing? My name is David Gonzalez. I'm her husband for 8 years. We just, anniversary just passed. Well, Happy New Year to everybody. Yeah, when we purchased the home, it had an existing fence. So for we don't cause no problems, we put a nicer fence on the inside, thinking that the neighbors would like us. And there was a personal issue with the neighbor next door. We told her we're evangelist pastors, and we pick up and we own another house in the community and a Christian barbershop, so we'll help her out. But I guess it's a personal issue.
So
but
now you got
I'm happy we
now
have
you got a
support
dog
here.
run there also.
Yeah. So thank you for your time. If you got any questions, I'm here.
Thank you very much.
Questions? Thank you. Is there anyone in chambers who wishes to speak to agenda item number 96?
Sorry, you're looking like a poster from me.
Ladies, you've been waiting patiently.
Hello.
Hello.
So happy to see everyone. Happy New Year's to you.
Year.
Hope that it be a successful year.
You too, thank you.
I'm here because, as I said, the alley had been closed. And for many years, even when I bought my home, it was already closed. And I don't see a problem. You know, everyone try to participate in keeping it clean. And I don't see the issue where she couldn't get to her part to pull the weeds or whatever. I would have went and pulled the weeds. We try to work together as a community person. I've been in that community and I've been in many communities. I have a foundation, our sisters, our friends, and I believe united we stand, but divided we fall. And I believe in working together. And that's the only way we can do it. It takes a village to do, even raise children, to keep your community safe. And that's what we try to do. And if she needed help, we would have, I would have paid for someone to pull the weeds and everything, but I'm just sad that it couldn't have been resolved, but that's lack of communication. And I thank you for your time, and God bless you all.
Councilman Goods.
So, Ms. Youngblood, so I make sure I got it right. You're not in opposition of it being closed, correct?
No.
All right.
Ms. Youngblood, could you please give us your full name for the record?
My full name is Sheila Youngblood. It's Sheillah, Youngblood, one word, Youngblood.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
That's mighty fine cooking.
Ms. Pressler, you need to be sworn in before you, ma'am, you need to be sworn in before you can make any comments. Thank you.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, ma'am.
Good afternoon. I'm Mary Priester, and my husband and I own the property at 1706 East North Bay, which is south of the Alleyway. We purchased that property in 1991, and even at that time, the alleyway was already closed, and the neighbors on both sides, there was a fence, so you wouldn't even know that there was an alleyway going through there. So I am in favor of vacating that alley.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Is that your statement for today?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Petitioner, do you have any rebuttal?
No, I was gonna say like.
Come on up to the podium, please.
Sorry. I just want to add to what Ms. Youngblood was saying, that if the neighbor would have talked to us and say, hey, I need to come into your property, you know, once in a while just to clean that side, we for sure would have said, okay, just let us know ahead of time, and we were more than welcome to, you know, have you in that side, just cleaning that off. That wouldn't be a problem. I just wanted to add that, as she was saying, that we work together as a community.
Any further questions or comments?
Second.
We have a motion closed by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Councilman Carlson.
Say
Are you comfortable with this?
I'd rather not make the motion.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilman Miranda, please.
File number 95, file number VAC 22-30. Ordinance being presented for first reading consideration. Ordinance in the city of Tampa, Florida, vacating, closing, discontinuing, and abandoning that alleyway north of North Bay Street, south of Genesee Street, east of 17th Street, and west of 19th Street, within the plat of Bonita subdivision in the city of Tampa, Hillsborough County, Florida, as more particularly described in section 2 thereof, subject to certain covenants, conditions, restrictions, and more particularly set forth within, providing for enforcement and penalties for violation, providing for definition, interpretation, repealing orders, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Sorry, did somebody say?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Goods. Roll call vote.
Carlson?
I'm gonna vote for this one, but we should not be closing these because of the city's negligence. So we need to be better at enforcing these in the future. Thank you. I'll vote yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Vieira?
Yes.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Hurtak?
Yes.
And Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously. Second reading and adoption will be held on February 2nd, 2023 at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you very much. File number, agenda item number 96, file number VAC 23-02. I understand that this is requesting a continuance until January 19th. Is this the first continuance on this?
Yes, Chair, Ron Wigington, Legal Department. This is a first request. I don't see the applicant in chambers. However, they sent an email earlier, I think it was yesterday, consenting to the request. There's some outstanding issues with regards to mobility and the water department, so we're hopeful that those will be resolved within the next 2 weeks.
Move to continue item 96 to January 19th at 10:30 a.m. under public hearings.
Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor? Is there any opposed? Thank you.
And if I may I provide this email to be received and filed?
No.
Consent to the request, please.
You're just off the rails today, you know that? I like that. Yes, sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Information and reports. Let's go with Councilman Miranda. Councilman Goods.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have one, that the Denver City Council give Mr. Ephraim Caban a commendation on February 7th for his bravery, awareness, and quick response. The single person who fell into his work truck on December 22nd, 2022.
Second.
And that was the gentleman that was found in the solid waste truck. He couldn't
Yes.
kill. With that fast, quick thinking of the gentleman.
We have a motion made by Councilman Goods, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to have staff come to council to outline the steps necessary to start the process of creating a safety impact fee to fund much-needed safety improvements, requesting the date of January 19th, 2023. I've already checked with legal staff. I've checked with everybody before I make my dates.
Second.
Motion made by Councilwoman Hurtak, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
And then I have another one. I have gotten a ton of calls and emails about this recently. I would like to make a motion to have waste management staff come to council and explain the difference between Monday, Thursday versus Tuesday, Friday trash, recycling, and yard waste pickups. It sounds like you're also getting these. There is an inequity in the number of non-service days, and what can be done to address it? I've already spoken to Mr. Washington, and he's requesting March 2nd only because they're in the height of Gasparilla season.
Second.
We all got them calls.
We have a motion made by Councilwoman Hurtak, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
That's it.
Wow. Councilman Maniscalco.
So, this may not have to be a motion, but I have a friend who's a Tampa native and a local architect. And lately, he's been writing poetry on all things Tampa, historical stuff, very, very interesting. And the other day, he wrote a poem about Gasparilla. So I was thinking, instead of, the invocation for January 26th, which is the Thursday before Gasparilla, if we can invite him to just read his Gasparilla poem in the spirit of the season. I know it's unusual, but, it doesn't need to be a motion, but anybody have any objection? It's fun.
Along with an invocation or instead of the invocation?
Well, we'll have a moment of silence and
Okay.
then, because I have the invocation month, so. All right, no motion, just a suggestion.
Can it be said to Andy Williams, the most wonderful time of the year?
Whatever you want. Thank you.
It's the book.
That's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Councilman Vieira.
Yeah, just really quick, a couple. I was gonna, I can't came into contact with a gentleman by the name of Nate Ross, who's recently turned 100, and he's actually a Holocaust survivor. He was at Auschwitz, and just an amazing story. And I just wanted to give him a Tampa City Council commendation for whenever we meet personally. He's 100, so can't come out here, but wanted to do that if I may.
We have a motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye. And second and lastly, on Acela, the retrieval system in the city of Tampa, getting a lot of concerns on the viability of the system, the efficiency of the system, not just for developers and for people doing business with the city, but for neighborhood leaders who want to find out what's happening. So I would request, if I may, on February 2nd of 2023 for city staff to come to report on the challenges with Acela and how we can remedy them, as well as make means so that the company representative can come to talk about deficiencies within the system and what they're going to be doing to remedy those deficiencies.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
And that's, and you know what, I'll just really fast, it'll be off premises. David Rowland, who's the staff attorney for the 13th Judicial Circuit, doing a commendation for him for his over 25 years of service to the 13th Judicial Circuit. Off premises.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor? Aye. Councilman Carlson? I have two. I would like to move to have staff give an update to the apprenticeship participation on the construction at the Hannah Street project, especially as a request that was made by me and others to make sure that they were Florida state certified. And also for, what is it, DRBP, the construction firm, to accompany, DBR, to accompany them with this update. And I would like that for February 2nd, 2023.
We have a motion from Chairman Citro. Do we have a second? Second from? Second. Councilmember Carlson, all in favor? Any opposed? Yes, sir, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'd also like to move to present a commendation to the Buccaneers quarterback, Blaine Gabbert, and his two brothers, Tyler and Barrett, for their role in the rescue of the Hupp family and the pilot from a helicopter crash off the coast of Davis Island, last Florida. This commendation will be presented at a later time, hopefully after the Buccaneers have brought home the Super Bowl championship statue.
We have a motion from Chairman Citro, second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to receive and file? Wait. Yes, sir.
Am I recognized, sir?
Yes, Councilman Goodman.
I almost forgot, today is a very special day for myself and my fraternity. Today is Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated's Founders Day.
Oh, that's right.
We are 112 years old today. So Phi Nu Pi to the brothers of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity. So I want to make sure I make that announcement. Thank
And
you.
on your license tag, you have NUPE, NUP.
Yes, sir, that's on there.
And that's what,
It's a special name we say, and with a special yo sign.
very good. Move to receive and file?
Second.
One second, Councilman. Excuse me, Mr. Shelby.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a reminder, city council members, on your calendar and for your information, we do have a special discussion meeting that is going to take place on Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. downstairs in the Sister Cities room. I had sent out the notice in December, but I want to thank Kelly Shaw for bringing this to my attention, that it auto-populated city clerk staff instead of city council staff, so I'm going to press the send button and resend it. But I wanted to make sure that everybody, it's been on your calendar, you made the motion, that it is hopefully starting promptly at 8, because you do have the commendations that start at 9. So I thank you very much, and I'll send that out again.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
We have a motion to receive and file. Without objection, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
What? So?
I'm waiting. Come on.
No, I'm gonna wait till the very last person's here, and that's more than likely gonna be me. Without objection, we're adjourned.